So then we've got question 9. We've got a software developer creating a program for a dog grooming company with branches in Dundee, Edinburgh, Glasgow and Stirling. Following data is stored about each dog. Dog ID, name of the dog, the branch, and you can see if you look at the branches here, it's a city. And then the number of visits to the branch. And that's just stored as an integer. Really important here, we're not doing like a count occurrence. You're not counting how many visits they made. You're told how many visits they've made. One feature of the programme is to offer a discount to customers that have visited the Dundee or Stirling branch more than 4 times. So I'm going to underline that, Dundee or Stirling branch more than 4 times. Interesting as well, it's more than, it's not at least, so it is going to be greater than 4. It's not greater than or equal to, which sometimes people are tempted to overuse. The code below was created to display the dog ID for customers that are to be offered a discount. So we've got a procedure. This procedure is called customer search. It's got some parameters going into it, so it's got pet no, city and visits. They're all parameters. Then it loops, so effectively loop for each dog. Then if city I equals Stirling, or if city I is Dundee and the visits is greater than 4, then it's going to display it. Now if we look back to what it was meant to do, it says here customers that have visited Dundee or Stirling more than 4 times. But that's not what this does. This does if they visited Stirling or if they visited Dundee more than 4 times. So there is a logic error here, and what it's actually going to produce is not what you would expect it to produce. Then down the bottom, this is just setting up the arrays, and then we're calling the procedure, and we're passing in these parameters. So the first part of the question is using the test data shown, that's these dogs here, state the output. Now what we're looking for with the actual condition here is if the city is Stirling or if the city is Dundee and the visits are more than 4, it's going to show them on the screen. So the first one, Rover, was Glasgow, so that's not going to be shown on the screen. Next one, Roman, is from Stirling. The condition is if the city is Stirling or, so that one is going to be shown on the screen. So it's A872. Then who's next? Kiever from Dundee. Well, it was Dundee and visits is greater than 4. They made 6 visits, so that does qualify, so that gets put on the screen. So that's D321. And then Bailey was Edinburgh, so that doesn't count. Jack was Stirling, and if it was Stirling then they get printed, so A423. Aussie was from Dundee, but the visits was less than 4, and that's part of the condition, so the visits was 2, so that one doesn't count, so it doesn't get printed. So 3 things get printed as the output. Then it says to rewrite line 3 to make the code fit for purpose, so this is the if statement. There's more than one way that you could write this condition, but either way you're going to need some brackets. So the way I would do it, the way I think it makes sense, because we want have visited Dundee or Stirling branch more than 4 times, would be if visits I is greater than 4 and the branch is Dundee or Stirling. So then brackets, branch, or sorry, it's not branch there, it's called city. City I equals Dundee, or city I equals Stirling, and I'm going to run out of space there. So that way we're getting, it's an and, they have to be both, they have to have more than 4 visits and be from one of those cities. Formal and actual parameters are used in the code, and we've seen the parameters over here. I'm going to get a highlighter here and let's highlight them. So we want a formal parameter and an actual parameter. It's associated actual parameter. So this is where the function is. The parameters here, we've got pet number, city and visits. Those are the formal parameters, and then the actual parameters are dog ID, branch, and the number of visits. So I'm just picking any pair out of here. My formal parameter, if I go for pet no, because that's the first one. Oops. Let's switch back to normal pet. So pet no. Then I want the associated actual parameter. Now what matters here is the order. So that's the first formal parameter. So the associated one, dog ID, is going to get passed into that because that's the order that they come in. So dog ID is parameter. Describe the operation of line 24 during the execution of this program. Now, it's noteworthy that this is 2 marks. It's the sort of thing that seemed to spook people when they came out of the exam last year when they were talking about what the questions were about. It's actually simpler than you would think. It's really just asking you what's the purpose of this line of code. So line 24 is customer search, brackets, dog ID, branch, and number of visits. We've already said that those are parameters. Customer search, what's that doing? Well, that's calling the procedure. So it calls the customer search procedure. And it passes in those variables as parameters. It's really as actual parameters to the procedure. So the bits and brackets there, those are the actual parameters, that's calling the procedure. Program makes use of local variables. Identify a local variable in the code. Well, a local variable couldn't be from down here because this isn't inside a module, so local variable must be from inside this procedure. If I switch back to highlighter again, if I look through it, we've got I is a local variable. To the length of pet number -1, if city I equals Stirling or city I equals Dundee and visits I, send pet number to display. There isn't actually another local variable in here, really. Now, in this particular question, they were fine with you using the parameters because really they can be treated like local variables and they behave like local variables. You can only use them in here. So you could also have had pet, no, city or visits. The only true local variable in there is I, depending on where you get the definition. Now, describe the scope of this local variable. Well, obviously, it says it's a local variable, so you can't just say that the scope is local. What it's asking you is, where can it be used? If a local variable means that it can only be used inside a module, where is that in this case? So we could say it can only be accessed in the customer search procedure. Or we could say lines 2 to 6. What we're getting at there is we're showing that we know that that variable I could only be used inside those lines, between lines 2 and 6. It doesn't exist, it can't be accessed outside that. That's what you're trying to show that you know. We've now got a programming question. It's 4 marks, it's a relatively easy one, although it's in a programming language. So the area manager wants to know how many dogs have made more than 5 visits to a particular branch. So that how many should immediately be flagging up to you. It's going to be a count occurrence algorithm. Using the programming language of your choice, the arrays branch and number of visits, so we're going to have to refer to these in our code. Write code to ask the user for the branch name, so we're going to have to do that, and to display how many, so that's the count have made more than 5 visits to this branch. So two sides to the condition there, where the number of visits is greater than 5 and the branch matches the branch that the user has typed in. So first thing I'm going to do with the count occurrence algorithm is I'm going to set the count to 0. The other thing that I need to do to start is this bit, ask the user for the branch name. Now you might find as you're doing it, tick them off as you do them. If that makes it easier for you to keep track, that's fine. So if I said something like branch name equals input, enter branch. See why I can't call it branch? Because there's already an array called that, so that's why I had to call it branch name. I could have called it search branch or target branch or just something else, but I couldn't use the word branch because that's already the array. Then the next step in a count occurrence algorithm, we're going to need to loop for each one. So for I in range, and I know from counting them earlier that there's 6 of them, or I could say for the length of the array. Then write code, so we've done that for the number of branch visits, how many dogs, more than 5 visits to this branch. So if the number of visits, so if number of visits, and I'm deliberately going to leave a space here, or it's not equals, it's more than, so greater than 5, and branch, so that's the array, and again I'm deliberately leaving a space here, equals branch name, which is the one they're searching for. Then we add 1 to the count, so count plus equals 1, and I'm implementing this in Python if I haven't already mentioned that. Now first of all, that looks like it's broadly okay. I've done my loop, I've said if the number of visits is more than 5, so more than 5 visits, and the branch matches, but this is the trap that some of you have fallen into when you're doing these in class, and you're then going to lose several of those marks. So number of visits, that's an array. We don't want just number of visits on its own because that would be comparing the whole array, which can't be done, so it would throw up an error. It's not number of visits, it's number of visits I, because it's each one at a time in the loop, and branch I because it's each one at a time in the loop. So if the number of visits I, so the first number of visits, the second number of visits, the third number of visits is greater than 5, and the branch, first branch, second branch, third branch, so on, equals the one they're searching for, then add 1 to the count. So that's my Python solution for that program.